What's up, guys? So I'm going to show you how to set up subscriptions, GraphQL subscriptions on an Express server. Now, if you don't have a server set up, I'll have some starter code linked below. If you want to follow along, that'll be on GitHub. They can follow along with this. If not, you can also work on your own Express server, and I'll show you how to do it. I really want to make this video though because I feel like there's not a lot of good resources out there for how to do subscriptions, and also the documentation's scattered between two different sources. So I'm going to go ahead and put these links in the description below as well. That way you can follow along and get more information. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So like I said, I already have an Express server set up. And it's the same one I've been using, a GraphQL template if you've been following along, and we're just going to plug it into that. So I'm literally just going to take this right here and copy and paste it, and then I'm just going to remove the stuff we don't need. I mean, we obviously don't need these 3 lines here, so we can remove those. And I'm just in the index folder of my, or index file of my project. And I'm going to paste it down here. And imports that we're going to need, we're not going to need PubSub here. I'll explain what that is and what we're going to use with that later. Don't have to worry about schema, we already have our schema. But these 3 things we need. So I'm going to put them at the top. Alright, this is already installed, comes with Node. We're going to have to install GraphQL and subscriptions transport. So I'm going to pop over to terminal and use yarn. So I'm going to do yarn add GraphQL, and then let's just copy and paste this. Oops. The transport. Oh, that did not copy well at all. There we go. Let that run, add it, and we can come back down here. Alright, so we already have an Express server set up running, so we don't need to create it. We don't need this. We already have our endpoint right here for GraphQL. We don't need that. So really just we need to create a server using the app. Now app matches up with whatever you use to create your GraphQL. For us it's called app2. And then we're going to do server.listen to start up the server, and then our schema is called schema, server is called server, and we can have that all tab over and good. ESLint doesn't like this because I'm using new, but there's no error here. That's fine because I'm not saying it to a variable. We're just going to leave it here, and this path is very important, /subscriptions. We're going to be using that in the client. Now to start the server we would do app.listen before. Instead we're going to do server.listen, so it creates it with this subscription server. Now our GraphQL still works though because we plugged that in to this create server. So we can just delete that and literally just copy this into here. And by the way, this path here can be anything you like. I have it on /subscriptions. That was the default that they give us, recommend. I'm going to keep it and just have it like that. Alright, so now we can accept subscriptions. What we need to do is we actually need to, in our schema, define some subscriptions and then handle them in our resolvers. But our server is now capable of accepting subscriptions. And here's the port number. That should be 3000. Alright, also let's pop over here real quick. Looks like everything got started okay, installed okay. And if I go to package.json, okay, so this happened to me. So before is notice how GraphQL went to a dev dependency, and I'm pretty sure ESLint, yep, see how ESLint doesn't like it. What I did to solve this is I just did yarn remove GraphQL, because GraphQL is actually a regular dependency. It's not a dev dependency, because if we were going to add this to production, we'd want it there too. But I do yarn remove and then yarn add GraphQL, and usually that works. If it does not work for you, do an npm install -- save. So notice how GraphQL works for me now. But if that doesn't, do yarn remove GraphQL, and then go ahead and do npm save GraphQL and give that, type this command, and it should work out for you. All right, but yeah, it's important you want to see GraphQL here. We have this set up there. We're all done with this page. Now on this page it shows us how to actually add the subscription to our schema. So I'm going to just copy this, and we're going to come over here, and we're actually not really going to use this. I just like it as a starting point. So we don't need this type. Basically, what's important is we need to create this type subscription, and then we create like a schema. We can copy this part. We put this at the bottom. So schema right here is GraphQL expects 3 different things. This one you don't really, they're all optional, but you have query, mutation, and subscription. I don't actually have to call my types for each one of these: query, mutation, subscription. I could call this Bob if I wanted to, but I would need to come over here and make this type Bob, right? But this just maps saying the Bob type is the root query, but it's better practice to use good naming. So we're saying the query type is a query, the mutation type is a mutation, and that's a subscription is a subscription type. So all our subscriptions should go inside the subscription type. Now here you want to basically say what you're listening for, and then this is the output of what you're listening for. Now the output of what you're listening for should be, whatever changed. So a concrete example, and this is what I showed in the demo, if you want to see subscriptions in action and you didn't see the video, I'll link below. You can see subscriptions in action. I show a little demo of how they work. So here what I'm going to be doing is user added, and then we're going to return a user, and we don't want it to be null. So every time we want to listen for whenever a user is added. We can tab this so it's good spacing. So whenever a user is added, we would like to get a user back, right? So the client is actually going to call this subscription called user added. It's going to subscribe to updates, and then every time a user is added, whoever subscribed to user added is going to get that user that was created passed to them. And you want to create one of these for each one. So let's say I have a board type, right? I could say board added, and you could pass in a board. And so you could have subscription for board. But it's not just limited to added. You could do removed too, right? You could say board removed, and you could listen for that. Or user removed, and you could have, you could return the board that was removed, or sorry, the user that was removed. But for now, we're just going to do user added. And I actually removed create user, but I'm going to put it back just for simplicity. So create user, I'm going to add to my mutation for this example, and it just takes a username, which is a string, and it returns a user. So we're going to hook it up to this mutation, so every time this mutation is run, it's going to alert all the people subscribed to user added. All right, so now we can come over to our resolvers, and this is where PubSub comes in. So we can pop back over here. PubSub is how we alert everyone that, hey, an update happened. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this PubSub object here, and then people can subscribe by calling pubsub.async iterator. Then you pass in a key, right? And what's important about this key is whenever there's an update, we pass this key in, and then anyone who subscribed to this key will get this, whatever this is right here, because this is the update. This is the object that's going to be sent to everyone who subscribed to this. So we don't have to copy that. We'll copy this though. So we're going to create a new PubSub at the top of ours, and we actually need to install GraphQL Subscriptions as well. So I'm going to yarn add GraphQL Subscriptions to add that up. And then down here in my PubSub, we actually need to create a new one here called Subscriptions, just like it is here. And we can copy this if we wanted to. So we have subscription on the outer layer. This is very similar to how we did query down here, is we'll have our query type, and inside we'll have all our queries. So I have our subscription and then all our subscriptions. So our subscription was user added, and yeah, user added, and then subscribe is what they do to subscribe. And we return async iterator. This is just from PubSub, what they use to listen. All right, so we can create a key. We'll call it user added. It's just user added. So this is just a string that references it. User added. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we need to publish an event. So anytime we want people to get updated, we need to publish an event, right? We said we want to update people that there is an event every time we create a user. So in our mutations down here, we actually need to remake create user. And I'm going to copy register because it's basically the same thing. So create user. It's going to be async, it takes a parent, args, all that stuff looks good. And we're going to PubSub here. So it's going to walk us through how this is going to work. So first we have our user here. So args, we're going to get passed a username. So this is really just an object that's like this. We're going to keep it as args. We're going to put a password in it just because that's what our database takes. I'm just going to add I don't know, because this is not, this is just a dummy creating user to show you guys. And we need a password to create it in the database. So then I'm going to create the user, right? And this is actually what we want to return from this query. So I'm going to say const user added is equal to, and then we're going to await. So this is an async function, so we can use the await syntax. And what this does is just waits for this to finish, like it suggests. So whenever this is returned, we get the user. So this is the user that we just added to the database. So hey guys, we just added a user, right? So now we want to do pubsub.publish. We want to do our user added, so everyone that's subscribed to this string. And then here we're going to say user added, and then our user right here, which we could just put in our user added thing here. And at the end here, we're going to return user added. And so this is the part, this is because we have a subscription, we're doing this, right? This is PubSub thing. Returning here and doing this is just so we resolve this mutation. And then we're doing a PubSub before we return, that way everyone is alerted. And that is pretty much it. The server is set up and is good to go to accept requests. So now our client can hook up. The first thing our client's going to do is it's going to call this subscribe function. And so it's going to be listening. Anytime a published event called user added, every time PubSub publishes user added, it'll get that information. So here, when we do PubSub, if the client subscribed to it, when we publish it here, they're going to get whatever this object is. That's going to be sent to the client. So that is it for this video, guys. Our server is good to go, and I'm next going to show you how to implement this in a couple different starter kits. So I'm going to start out with ReactQL, and then also do in Next.js, and maybe I'll do some more as well to show you how to take advantage now that our server is able to handle subscriptions. So if you guys had any trouble setting this up, please leave a comment below. I'd love to help you guys out, and I'll see you in the next video.